Jared!
What you're going to need for this project is a water ski. I found mine at a local thrift shop for $5. Next thing you'll need to do is take off all of the unwanted hardware. And I took a paper pattern and made the pattern that I wanted the longboard to look like, and traced it out. I cut off the excess part of the water ski that is not needed for the longboard. Then using a bandsaw, I cut out the pattern which I drew on the board. Being very careful to stay within the lines. And then I sanded up the edge of that cut, give it a nice clean smooth edge. And the next thing is I sanded the bottom of the board with an orbital sander. Now if you don't have an orbital sander or any of these tools that you don't have, you can improvise. But I did this just to get the bottom ready so that I could put a new coat of lacquer on it. Then you'll need to put a coat of lacquer on it, making sure that you get a nice even smooth coat on. Notice how the wood's showing through really nicely. Some of the old marks from the lacquer are staining a little darker, giving it kind of a cool vintage look. This is the third coat of lacquer that I've put on it, letting each coat dry before the next coat goes on. And I did not lacquer the top of the board. Next thing you'll do is you'll need a 2-part epoxy resin. We're going to mix those 50-50. So you'll have a side A and a side B that you'll mix evenly. And we'll use this to put the grit on the top of the board. You pour those into the cup to mix in. And we want to make sure that we mix this extremely well to get all of the resin mixed so you don't have any sticky, gooey marks on your board. And just pour that on the board. Nice long stream down the bottom or the center of the board. And the next thing you're going to do is use I used a 3x5 card folded in half to smooth it around the board and get a nice even coat on top of this board. Once you've got that done, what we're going to do is take some grit or some sand and just lightly sprinkle it over the top and get a nice covering of sand on there. And once that 2-part epoxy resin dries, you'll have a nice grit on top of the board. And I did this number one so that you could see the wood through the epoxy resin grit. And 2, it was actually easier than trying to put on a sandpaper type grit. So Next thing you'll do is drill the holes for your trucks. I pre-measured and marked these before drilling. And then of course mount your trucks on. I bought these trucks on the internet. There's a link in my website. If you go there, I can give you that link. And then I tighten them down. I actually found that hand tightening them works better than using this drill driver. I actually ended up stripping out the heads of the screws, so take note. And there you have it. And the video here is I decided to add a little flames to it and decorate it up a little bit. So that's the end product of your homemade longboard.